her agenda for the 2021 legislative session. A speech delivered for decades in the morning of the second day of session. This year, the governor setting it for prime time. The coronavirus pandemic front and center tonight, with more than 4,000 Iowans dead from the virus and many more losing their jobs. What relief is coming? The future of education also on the minds of lawmakers and the governor as she makes her speech tonight. What options they're looking to give you and your family. 2020 brought issues to light like criminal justice reform, a deadly derecho, and a long drought, all which could spur legislation this year from the governor's office. Governor Reynolds delivering her remarks just days after the deadly attacks on the United States Capitol and on the eve of the second impeachment of President Donald Trump. Local 5's live coverage from the Good evening and welcome to our special coverage of the 2021 condition of the state. In just a few moments, Governor Kim Reynolds is set to deliver her third condition of the state at the Iowa State House. We are told she has been walking into the building right now, and so we are on standby at this moment. But you are looking at the House chamber right now. Normally this speech would happen in the morning to a joint session. This year, though, the governor decided to take a prime time approach for it, so more people will probably be able to tune in and watch as she delivers her goals for the state. We are also told that a lot of Democrats will be watching from home tonight instead of in person at the chamber because there is no mask mandate in the State House this year. Well, as we said at the top of the show, the speech is typically given in the middle of the morning, not at 6 at night. We weren't given an exact reason for the time change, but it does mean more people will be watching. Joining us now for insight as to what the governor will discuss is Chief Political Correspondent Rachel Droz. Rachel, what are you watching for tonight?
Well, there's going to be a whole lot discussed in this speech, but before I get to that, I want to show you what's going on right behind me. The governor is over there wearing red. If we can zoom in on her, she is waiting to get permission to walk into the House chamber. Just before she goes in, the lieutenant governor is walking in now, and right before that, the Supreme Court actually just got permission to enter the chamber as well. The Chief Justice just taking his seat. So this is Governor Kim Reynolds' third condition of the state that she'll be giving. Before she can enter, she actually has to get permission from the Speaker of the House to enter that chamber. So that's kind of why we're waiting out here. She just walked up from her office right downstairs here in the Capitol building. And there's going to be a lot that we're looking for tonight in this speech. Of course, pandemic is going to be top of mind, and also the civil unrest is also expected to be a big issue being discussed. Another one that is somewhat pandemic related is child care. That's something that both Republicans and Democrats alike, that's a pretty bipartisan issue. Both Senate and House members said that they are anticipating that is going to be one of their benchmark legislation this year. And of course, the governor is a big proponent of it as well. There are several areas around Iowa without child care coverage and also issues with affordability. You can now see the governor behind me is entering into the chamber with her family. Her husband Kevin is with her. So we are going to be tossing it back to you so that we can start tuning into this live coverage, but stay with us all night. We will have a wrap up of this after she wraps up her speech, and of course at 9 and 10. So Stephanie, back to you.
All right, Rachel, thank you. We will check back in with you later, probably right after the governor's speech. And as you saw, the governor is about to walk into that House chamber there. She will be greeted by the lawmakers who chose to watch in person. We do know that some will be watching virtually from home because, again, there is no mask mandate in the State House this year. And there is the governor right now. She is walking up to her podium to deliver her third condition of the state address, but this is the first time she is addressing the state on its condition in this prime time slot. Normally this is done to a joint session in the morning hours, so this is definitely a different trend. We are assuming she wanted more people to be able to watch. We haven't been told that specifically, but in a year like this, there's probably a lot the governor has to say to Iowans. We are going to now listen to what the governor has to say.
It is my pleasure to introduce Governor Kim Reynolds for her Condition of the State message to the 2021 session of the 89th General Assembly.
be seated. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Lieutenant Governor, legislative leaders and members, justices and judges, my fellow Iowans. Our state constitution says that every year the governor must communicate to the General Assembly the condition of the state. That usually happens in the morning on the second day of the legislative session. But tonight, I'm breaking with that tradition so that I may speak directly to Iowans. It's been a year, and I'll let you fill in whatever adjective you want. COVID-19, civil unrest, a drought, a derecho. We've been beaten and battered in about every way imaginable, and some unimaginable. But together, we've met every challenge with bravery and outright grit. We're told that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance, character. From what I've seen, there's no shortage of character in the people of Iowa. And despite what we've been through, or maybe because of it, the condition of our state has never been stronger. We live in a place where 82-year-old Blanche Cheesick from Brett sewed over 1,000 masks and baked dozens of pastries for healthcare workers. Where 17-year-old Tanner Kennan recruited his friends to start a grocery delivery company for the elderly. Where an anonymous donor gave out more than $80,000 in gift cards from local businesses to every resident of Earlham. And where countless other Iowans donated food, time, and resources. Thousands of Iowans, truck drivers, manufacturers, grocery store clerks, meat processing workers, and so many more showed up to work every day to make sure that the people of this state and the world were fed. Police officers, social workers, and government employees worked around the clock to deliver PPE and to make sure that Iowans continue to receive the services that they depend on. Small businesses adjusted their hours and often how they operate to protect their employees and their customers. And nowhere was the dedication and commitment to others more evident than in our healthcare system. Nurses, doctors, technicians, pharmacists, EMTs, janitors, social workers, and thousands of direct care workers in our senior living communities. In 2020, you worked some of the longest hours in the most uncertain conditions. Your actions saved lives. Your spirit inspired us. And you didn't just provide medical care. Your patients often couldn't be with their loved ones, so you also provided them comfort and company. You sat with them when no one else could. You held their hand, facilitated calls to family, and in some cases, stood by them while they took their last breath. While many of us were shielded from the worst of the pandemic, you were on the front lines every day, and we cannot sufficiently express our gratitude, but we're gonna give it the good old Iowa try. So please join me in thanking those heroic Iowans. Iowans are well accustomed to the extremes of Mother Nature's temper, but the derecho in August was unlike anything we've seen. Hurricane-force winds recorded as high as 140 miles an hour raged across our state. Over a third of our counties impacted. 584,000 households left without power. Thousands of homes damaged. Millions of acres of crops were flattened. And as grain bins crumbled, we lost over 100 million bushels of grain storage. It was a disaster of unprecedented scope. In Marshalltown, the derecho left behind 3 times as much debris as the F3 tornado that ripped through the city's downtown in 2018. And the scars will be evident for generations to come in places like Cedar Rapids and Marion, where they lost more than half of their tree canopy. We praise the dedication of the more than 200 National Guard members who deployed to help remove debris, the local police, fire, public works departments, and emergency managers who stepped up and served their neighbors tirelessly, and the dedicated staff of state agencies like the DHS, DNR, and the DOT, who pressed ahead when their state needed them. We thank the thousands of line workers who came from across the country to supplement the crews, from Alliant, Mid-American, and other utilities, to restore electricity with astonishing speed, often to the applause of Iowans. I had the opportunity to speak with some of the line workers from out of state, and I heard not only that our disaster was as bad as the aftermath of hurricanes whose names have been retired, but also that Iowans showed more patience, more gratitude, and more hope than anyone else that they'd ever seen. Good corporate citizenship was put on display, not only by our power companies, but by essential suppliers like Hy-Vee and Fairway, who donated food, water, and supplies. It was shown by small business owners like Willie Ray Fairley, whose Willie Ray Q Shack gave away hundreds of meals a day to people whose own refrigerator and stoves weren't working. Willie Ray didn't just fill hungry stomachs, he fed a sense of community, and that's what makes a disaster bearable. What happened this year went beyond Iowa nice. You showed a humanity that rivals what most of us have seen in our lifetime. Our job now is to hold on to that humanity. 2020 left its mark on everyone, but not evenly. There are people across this state who are still hurting. Many lost their job or their business or even their home, and many lost loved ones to this horrible pandemic. For them, and for anyone who lost someone this year, whatever the cause, saying goodbye was even harder than it usually is. You may not have been able to be with them while they were sick, to hold their hand one last time, or to fully celebrate their life at a funeral with all those they loved. So whether you're in the chamber or watching at home, please take a moment, bow your head, and remember those we lost this year and the loved ones they leave behind. Thank you. When I stood here last year, our fiscal health was strong. We had one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Incomes were going up and our economy was roaring. And then 2020 happened. We took a hit like everyone else, but we didn't falter. Because of conservative budgeting, Iowa's diverse economy, and the decision to keep over 80% of our businesses open, and because of the tenacity of our people, Iowa isn't facing a massive budget shortfall like many states. As I stand here tonight, our unemployment rate has returned to 3.6%, one of the lowest in the country. And our GDP grew over 36% in the third quarter of 2020, outpacing the nation. Iowa is coming back and we're coming back strong. Iowa's success has always been about turning obstacles into opportunities and overcoming adversity together. The post-COVID world won't be the same as the pre-COVID world, and it shouldn't. We've learned a lot. Entire sectors of our economy were forced to innovate overnight and adapt to survive. We can approach Iowa's economic recovery in a number of ways. We can return to where we were, which is realistic, but still an ambitious goal. Or we can take what we've learned and the innovation that's been applied over the past 10 months and capitalize on that opportunity to reimagine, modernize, and possibly restructure everything from healthcare and education to our workforce and quality of life. It's about ensuring our future prosperity is widespread and reaches all people in all parts of Iowa, including those that too often feel left out when times are good. And that's why I formed the Economic Recovery Advisory Board this summer. Chaired by Ruan Transportation CEO Ben McLean, the 15-member board and 350 working group members volunteered their time and talents in meeting my charge to be bold, innovative, and direct about the challenges facing our economy. I want to thank them for their diligent work to make sure that we support every part of Iowa and every Iowan. Their report will be released soon, but there are a few big issues that we can begin to address tonight. The need for universal broadband is one of them. As we've seen during the pandemic, high-speed internet is as vital to our communities as running water and electricity. If they don't have it, they can't grow. Every year I've been governor, I've focused on expanding broadband to every community, and we're making progress, but not enough. About a third of our counties are still broadband deserts, where high-speed internet is rarely often offered, and for many Iowans, it's just not affordable. Iowa also has the second lowest broadband speeds in the country. I'm done taking small steps and hoping for big change. This is the time for bold action and leadership. Let's plant a stake in the ground and declare that every part of Iowa will have affordable high-speed broadband by 2025, and we'll get there by committing $450 million over that time period, which will leverage millions more in private investment, giving Iowa the biggest build-out of high-speed internet in the country. Has more households with all parents working than any other state, yet we've lost a third of our child care spots over the last 5 years. When schools abruptly closed last spring, a system already under stress was pushed even harder. Some families were able to adapt by working from home. Others leaned on grandparents, aunts and uncles, and family friends for support. In Potawatomi County, a group of daycare providers and other partners teamed up to provide free daycare for essential workers. But many parents weren't so lucky and struggled to find ways to care for their children and still show up for work, often in roles that are essential to all of us. Even when the coronavirus is a distant memory, Iowa will still need an abundance of high-quality childcare so that families can prosper and children can grow. Many of our communities and businesses are working together to address this issue. In Stewart, 17 local businesses joined together to purchase an empty building with plans to renovate and lease it to a child care provider. It's in our state's interest to encourage these types of public-private partnerships, which is why we created the Child Care Challenge last year. It's an innovative program that encourages employers, community leaders, and others to collaborate in developing child care facilities. This year, we need to fund that program. So I'm allocating $3 million to jumpstart these public-private partnerships. I'm also using $25 million of child care development block grants to further promote child care startups. Every community has different needs and different resources. And just as the leaders in Stewart found a solution that fits their hometown, we want to facilitate local solutions in other places too. So let's remove the obstacles to high-quality, affordable child care so that Iowa families can nurture their kids while parents maintain the maximum freedom to enter and remain in the workforce. As our economy comes back, we're again facing a familiar problem. More job openings than there are people who have the skills to fill them. And that's why we need to continue the work we started with Future Ready Iowa, a program that's designed to increase the number of Iowans with education or training beyond high school. Education or training, that's worth repeating. We have exceptional universities, colleges, and community colleges in this state. But not all skills are learned in a classroom. On-the-job training and reskilling are some of the most valuable ways to advance our workforce and increase Iowans' wages. We need to continue to find ways to recognize this type of experience. We took a big step in June by passing a significant licensing reform package. It didn't get a lot of attention at the time, but at the beginning of this session, we should stop to recognize how important it was. Iowa now has the most flexible licensing, reciprocity, and recognition laws in the nation, which sends a signal to the country that Iowa is open for business. And we're not done. This year, we'll begin the task of reviewing each of the licensing boards and commissions to make sure that they're serving their purpose. We must also continue the great strides that we've made by integrating work-based learning into the K-12 curriculum. We know that many kids think of education differently when it involves real-life experiences. They see why education matters, and it can be really a key in helping them choose and prepare for a career that fits them. Many schools across the state are offering these amazing work-based learning experiences. Let's make sure that every high school student gets that same chance. I'm calling on the legislature to make that an expectation of all our schools. When Iowa families come together after work and school, they need a place to call home. Unfortunately, we have a growing mismatch between where job opportunities are thriving and where people can find affordable places to live. Some communities have rallied to buck this trend. Forest City hadn't seen a new affordable apartment complex in more than 25 years. So community leaders raised $4 million in financing by leveraging local and state resources, and a new apartment complex was built in 2017. In Davenport, leaders used the same public-private partnership to convert an old vacant school building into 41 affordable apartments, which were rented within 2 months. This project brought new housing to the historic riverfront, and it served as a catalyst for redevelopment. Forest City and Davenport exemplify the spirit of Iowa communities, but the reality is there aren't enough resources to go around. Last year alone, Iowa communities requested more than 3 times what was available. We must expand initiatives like these that address pent-up demand for affordable housing, helping our communities thrive and our families move where opportunities await them. There's a lot to do this year, but if we tackle issues like broadband, childcare, workforce training, and affordable housing, we'll set Iowa on a solid path of economic prosperity for years to come. And remember that unlike many states, we're starting from a good financial position. We aren't looking at tough budget cuts, and we're certainly not looking at raising taxes. If anything, we need to continue the conversation about cutting taxes, and we can start by getting rid of the unnecessary triggers that were put in place in 2018. When we do that, we make Iowa more competitive, and we guarantee that our taxpayers can keep more of their hard-earned money. A high-quality education system is the foundation of our state. Historically, we've had some of the best schools in the nation, and I believe we still do. What many of our teachers and administrators did this last year was nothing short of amazing. In Clear Creek, Amana, Barb Hunt's special education students were struggling with virtual learning, so she worked with the transportation director, Denny Schreckengast, to convert a camper into a classroom, bringing the classroom to them. In Hinton, when the school went to hybrid model for a few weeks, teachers spent hours holding individual Zoom calls with students, sometimes going into the evening to make sure that they weren't falling behind. At West Sioux, teachers personally went to the homes of Spanish-speaking families who needed help setting up their internet. In Clarinda, the district was short on bus drivers, so Josh Porter, a school administrator with a CDL, jumped behind the wheel to make sure his kids could be in the classroom. And in Cedar Rapids, Noreen Bush, superintendent of the second largest school district in the state, and her team made heroic efforts to get her kids back into the classroom just weeks after many of their schools were ripped apart by the derecho. And she did it all while receiving chemotherapy. There are stories like this from all across the state. Teachers and administrators put their students first in uncertain and difficult times, especially as they implemented plans to safely and responsibly reopen schools. But this hasn't been the case everywhere. Over the last several months, I've heard the frustration from many parents, students, and teachers who didn't have the opportunity to go back to school. So let me share a few of those frustrations. I talked to a passionate teacher whose student hasn't logged in for class in 9 weeks, and there is nothing she can do about it. I visited with the parent of a child with special needs who is devastated by seeing her daughter's education and social own schoolwork at night. I heard from numerous parents whose children's school day consisted of 60 to 90 minutes of online instruction per day at the most. Nicole, a mother of 3 elementary students who since March have spent less than a week in the classroom. She told me she's struggling to facilitate her children's online learning while keeping up with her job. She said she feels like she's failing as a parent, a spouse, and an employee. These stories are heartbreaking. And let me assure you, Nicole, it's not you who's failing. The vast majority of our schools found a way to safely and responsibly reopen all day, Monday through Friday. It's past time that every district make that happen. As one parent told me, options are good, but if some parents get the option to go 100% online, why don't my kids get the option to be 100% in the classroom? And I agree. So tonight, I'm asking the legislature to immediately send a bill to my desk that gives parents the choice to send their children back to school full-time. We can't wait any longer, and our kids can't wait any longer. If there's one thing that the pandemic has taught us about education, it is that our parents need choice. And it's not just in-person versus virtual. Sometimes it's about which school to attend altogether. When some schools remained closed or went part-time this fall, a lot of parents sent their kids to private school or opened enrolled. But not everyone had that option. Many parents can't afford private school, and because some of our larger districts prohibit open enrollment, they won't let you transfer to another public school. One parent I talked to said that a school administrator actually recommended that she buy a house in the neighboring district if she wanted her son to go to school in person. We need to fix that. School choice shouldn't be limited to those who have the financial means or are lucky enough to live in a district that's confident enough to allow open enrollment. So let's make choice an option for everyone. We can do that by making open enrollment available in all districts and by allowing our communities more flexibility to create public charter schools where there is a need for an alternative. And we should create education savings accounts for students who are trapped in a failing school. Let's give them another choice by making sure money isn't their barrier. Make no mistake, it's imperative that we have a strong public school system, which is why we have and will continue to prioritize school funding while many other states are cutting their education budgets. But school choice isn't a zero-sum game. It has the potential to raise the quality for all schools. And for those schools that do fall behind, it ensures that our children don't fall with them. Let's work together to make sure every child receives a quality education regardless of income and no matter their zip code. In 2020, we saw an overwhelming call for racial justice in Iowa and across the nation. We heard that call and with bipartisan effort passed the More Perfect Union Act. I'm proud of that legislation, and we're continuing to make criminal justice reform a priority. I'm also very proud of our law enforcement. They put their lives on the line every day, something we should never forget. And if we needed a reminder, last year's civil unrest and last week's attack on the Capitol provided it. Violence and anarchy are not acceptable, period. Our prayers are with the families of the Capitol Police officers who sacrificed their lives to defend the beacon of our democracy and the people in it. And our prayers are with every other officer who defends us against those who are intent on violence. This summer, when protests gave way to rioting and looting in the Quad Cities, 3 Davenport police officers were ambushed. 32 rounds of gunfire were pumped into the truck that Sergeant Lansing, Lieutenant Benning, and Detective Sievert were in. The truck windows were shattered. Sergeant Lansing was shot in the leg, and multiple bullets struck his headrest. The truck took on so much fire that it could barely accelerate, but Sergeant Lansing navigated it to safety. In her Quad City Times column, Barb Ickes eloquently wrote that nightmare scene is precisely what police train for, but that the resulting courage cannot be taught. Their escape is astonishing, she said. Most of us can't even imagine it. I couldn't agree more. Please join me in thanking these brave officers who were with us tonight. We should never take this bravery for granted, but in cities like Minneapolis, Portland, and New York, they have. They've embraced the attacks on law enforcement, and now their violent crime rates are rising for the first time in generations. That's not going to happen in Iowa, not on my watch. We should never be afraid to talk about ways to improve policing, but there will be no talk of defunding the police. Our men and women in blue will always have my respect, and I will always have their back. To that end, I'll be introducing a bill that protects law enforcement and continues our march towards racial justice. The bill will make it clear that if you riot or attack our men and women in uniform, you will be punished. We won't stand for it. The bill will also ban racial profiling and other forms of disparate treatment, because no actions should ever be taken based on the color of someone's skin. As Martin Luther King Jr. recognized, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So let's come together again like we did last year to support our law enforcement and racial justice. Let's make Iowa a safer place for everyone. When Iowans come together, we do big things. We've grown our economy, protected life and our Second Amendment, lowered the tax burden on Iowans, supported our farmers and producers by increasing demand for biofuels, protected our environment by promoting renewable energy, and so much more. Like this past year, when we watched healthcare in Iowa transform from a collection of competing hospitals and clinics to a single statewide healthcare system committed to collaborating for the sake of all Iowans. As we move forward, let's build on that collaborative and innovative spirit. In my budget, I'm proposing $1 million to encourage hospitals and clinics to start what's called a Center of Excellence. It's a program that aligns rural physicians with specialists, creating regional hubs that provide highly skilled care closer to where patients and their primary care providers live. So whether you're dealing with the trauma of an accident or the joy of childbirth, it's not just the quality of the team that matters, it's the proximity. I want a better system of care for all Iowans, regardless of where they live. I also want to make sure that when Iowans call 911 for an emergency, there's a quick response. I know members in this chamber are already working on a bill to improve rural EMS services, and I look forward to working with you this session. We must also continue our focus on mental health. While the virus threatened our physical well-being, the realities of last year placed unimaginable stress on so many Iowans. Seniors were isolated from friends and loved ones. Kids were kept out of the classroom and away from the stability it provides, and thousands of Iowans had their livelihoods turned upside down. In the last 3 years, we've reformed our mental health system, and we're continuing to make it better. I'm proposing to increase mental health funding by $15 million this year and another $15 million next to fully fund the reform efforts. And I know that our mental health regions are working on innovative solutions to address the unique needs of children who have been affected by the pandemic. And because of the legislation that we passed last year, which allows schools to host behavioral health sessions using telehealth, kids no longer have to leave school for hours to receive quality treatment. That's a lesson many of us learned over the last 10 months. Telehealth is a powerful tool that we should continue to encourage and expand. And it's not just for mental health. Thousands of Iowans experienced it firsthand this year, receiving treatment and checkups from their own home. In 2020, we asked so much of our healthcare providers, and they've met those expectations at every step of the way. Many of our hospitals were at the forefront of developing treatments for COVID-19, and the University of Iowa has been key in the development of vaccines. The availability of vaccines marks the most significant turning point since the pandemic. And I'm proud to say that Iowa is one of the states leading the nation in administering the vaccine. To date, nearly 100,000 Iowans, including our healthcare workers, have received their first dose, and several thousand have now received their second. And by January 25th, all 90,000 nursing home residents and staff will have received the vaccine, ensuring that Iowans most at risk are among the first to have this protection. I know we are all eager to be vaccinated and turn the corner, and wider distribution to more Iowans is imminent. But as we begin to put 2020 behind us, I have two requests for my fellow Iowans. First, let's not forget those neighbors who are still hurting. Reach out, keep volunteering, continue to stock food banks. Continue to show the country that it doesn't take a pandemic or a derecho to lend a helping hand. Second, let's not return to normal. Let's be better. Let's think bigger. Let's be bolder. If anything, this year has shown us what we can accomplish and how fast we can do it. Hold on to that spirit, to that ingenuity, and that collaboration, to the feeling that we're working together for the greater good and not ourselves. If we can do that, if we can work with and for each other, then we will do great things. I believe in this state because I believe in you. I've seen what you've done. I've watched, sometimes with tears of pride in my eyes. And that's how I know that the condition of our state is strong. Because you are strong, stronger than you ever imagined. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Iowa.
All right, Governor Kim Reynolds wrapping up her third condition of the state address as governor. First time it's been in prime time. She wanted to reach a large crowd of Iowans. As she said, we have been dealing with unprecedented circumstances this year, of course, as we all know. So she wanted to address as many Iowans as she could in their homes tonight. And she touched on several issues, striking a very optimistic tone about the state of the budget in Iowa. But she also talked about schools, going so far as asking for a bill to be sent to her desk as soon as possible to get students back into the classroom. She talked about childcare, about affordable housing, racial justice in the state and police protection, healthcare. She talked about where we stand with the COVID vaccine. So she covered a broad range of topics now. So to get a little bit of a deeper dive into what we just heard from the governor, let's head down to the State House where our chief political correspondent Rachel Droz has been listening in. And yes, Rachel, she covered a lot of topics tonight and seemed like she's ready to get started. Of course, that's easier with the House and Senate also under Republican control.
Yeah, that's very true, Stephanie. A lot of what she laid out is what we expected. One area where she really did take a strong stance is policing and public safety. Of course, she did propose that she said that she is going to be introducing a bill that will have tougher penalties for people that harm police and also people that riot. And she also is proposing in that same bill to withhold money from local governments who defund their police. Let's take a listen.
To that end, I'll be introducing a bill that protects law enforcement and continues our march towards racial justice. The bill will make it clear that if you riot or attack our men and women in uniform, you will be punished. We won't stand for it. The bill will also ban racial profiling and other forms of disparate treatment, because no actions should ever be taken based on the color of someone's skin.
And the governor, who just actually walked out of the House.
All right, we are frozen there down at the State House, as live TV has a tendency to happen. We're going to check in with Local 5's Eva Anderson now, who is in our newsroom. And Eva, you have been focusing mainly on education. We know this is a huge topic. Every year it's a big topic, but right now there is that the differing opinions in the state of whether or not kids should be in school because of the pandemic. The governor being very bold, saying that she wants lawmakers to send a bill as soon as possible to her that gives parents a choice to send kids back to school full time. So Eva, what's your take on what we heard tonight?
Oh, that's right, Stephanie. And it's a lot of what we were expecting. We know that since the beginning, Governor Reynolds has been very vocal about wanting to bring students back into school in the safest way possible. She spent a large part of her speech praising teachers, saying, quote, the work they've done this year is nothing short of amazing. She also expressed support for families who've been able to adjust with all those curveballs that were thrown at them, especially for families for whom childcare resources were not plentiful and it was a bit harder for them, or maybe just not possible for them to find childcare during school hours. She mentioned a couple personal stories, one of a mother who works a few different jobs, and she wanted to emphasize that she is standing up for and going to support families who don't have the resources for childcare. And so the biggest news then is she wants the legislature to send her a bill that makes it an option for all families, regardless of what school district they live in, to be able to let their kid attend school in person, no matter the district. I believe we have sound from here, so take a listen.
It's past time that every district make that happen. As one parent told me, options are good, but if some parents get the option to go 100% online, why don't my kids get the option to be 100% in the classroom? And I agree. So tonight, I'm asking the legislature to immediately send a bill to my desk that gives parents the choice to send their children back to school full-time. We can't wait any longer, and our kids can't wait any longer.
And that applause that you hear just trailing off there, that actually lasted for at least 10 seconds. So that was something that the people who are in support in person of Governor Reynolds were very happy to hear. Another thing she talked about is she wanted to make open enrollment available for all families as well. So districts that don't currently accommodate that, she wants that option to be there as well. For now, reporting live in the newsroom, Eva Anderson, Local 5 News. We are Iowa.
Yeah, a lot of territory covered there in education, Eva, especially during a pandemic when we have so many challenges. Thank you so much. I want to remind you that we will be streaming the Democratic response on our website, weareiowa.com, and also on our app. So use those services tonight for more coverage on this. And also, if you would like to ask a question, or if there's something you'd like us to look into, or you want to share a thought about what you heard in the condition of the state address tonight, please text us. The number is 515-457-1026. And we're going to now head back down to the State House. We have Rachel Droz once again. Hi there, Rachel.
Hi there. Hopefully you guys have a better connection this time, so we'll try this again. I'm going to pick up talking about where I left off, the racial profiling bill that was proposed. That is, she's proposing a ban on racial profiling that will include automating race and ethnicity data collected from police officers. Also, moving on to taxes, that's of course something always topical when it comes to this condition of the state, because along with it we get the entire budget proposal from the governor. In this proposal, there is she's suggesting that the lawmakers remove a trigger that is in a 2018 law so that income taxes can be cut in 2023, but other than that, tax levels are expected to stay the same in her budget.
We aren't looking at tough budget cuts, and we're certainly not looking at raising taxes. If anything, we need to continue the conversation about cutting taxes, and we can start by getting rid of the unnecessary triggers that were put in place in 2018.
And such as 2020, well, I guess now we're in 2021, but the pandemic really highlighted the need for reliable, affordable broadband. That is included in the governor's proposal this year. She wants there to be reliable, affordable broadband in every single part of Iowa by 2025, and that and she's proposing they spend $450 million over 3 years in order to get us where we need to be. Of course, another thing this pandemic highlighted is the problems with child care, affordable child care, and in some places in Iowa, just having any child care available at all. So she's proposing quite a bit of her proposed budget to go to child care. Take a listen.
So let's remove the obstacles to high-quality, affordable childcare so that Iowa families can nurture their kids while parents maintain the maximum freedom to enter and remain in the workforce.
Now, $28 million is what she's proposing to go to starting and also renovating child care facilities across Iowa, hoping that that makes a dent in some of the problems that areas are seeing across the state. Stephanie?
All right, Rachel, as always, thank you so much for your coverage. We appreciate it. And we're going to take a minute to check in on your weather with Chief Meteorologist Brad Edwards.
Yeah, the weather's been pretty quiet out there. That's good news. We had a warm day again today. Temperatures in the 40s here. Hit 50 degrees in Carroll. There's very little snow in western Iowa, so they're getting a little bit warmer out there. Tonight, everybody's cooling back down, but still way above average for this time of the year. Now, looking ahead, we are going to see a few clouds coming in tonight, but generally just a nice night out there for January. Temperatures staying above freezing before midnight. And we will start off a little cool tomorrow, but getting up to 48 degrees. It is going to get colder, though, in the days to come. So temperatures start to drop here going into the weekend. And it's also going to be a little bit snowy out there. The chance of snow is going to be going up. Thursday, we've got a chance of rain or snow, mainly in northern Iowa. But Friday is a day we might have to watch it on the roadways because we could have enough snow to cause some slippery roads. So we got a level 2 on our winter threat forecast. Looking at the future cast, you can see we'll have a few clouds the next 24 hours or so. Then Thursday morning, that chance of rain or snow comes in, especially northern Iowa. The low is going to spin out right over the Midwest. So that's going to create snow showers. And some of those could be fairly heavy and prolonged. And that means some accumulation possible, especially in northern Iowa. It looks like the best chance of seeing accumulating snowfall. We are going to continue to have strong winds Thursday, Friday, maybe even into Saturday, and that's going to drive those temperatures down. So here's your Holt Plumbing and Heating 10-day outlook. One more mild day tomorrow. Get out and enjoy that, 48 degrees. It'll be windy, but still kind of a mild day on Thursday, but that rain and snow chance, and then the colder air follows on Friday, and we will feel like winter again Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Temperatures rebound a little bit. On Martin Luther King Day, we got a high of 34 degrees, and it looks like we're going to go right back into that pattern of more mild weather. We have not hit zero yet this winter, Stephanie, so it just continues to be a pretty smooth ride in the weather.
Indeed. All right, Brad, thank you. Of course, education, something Iowa is always proud of. And tonight, the governor was very specific on her goals in education, even during these pandemic times, which have been so tough on our schools. Let's go back to the newsroom where we have Eva Anderson to talk a little bit more about what we heard about education tonight. Eva.
Well, we heard a lot about education. Governor Reynolds saying she'd like to see a bill that gives all families the option to send their children to school in person during the pandemic. And right now we're seeing responses pour in from you, the viewers. I posted on my Facebook page, Eva Anderson TV, and I've got some of your reactions tonight. I want to read a few of them. Specifically, during the beginning of the speech, Governor Reynolds said, quote, "Despite what we've been through, or maybe because of it, the condition of our state has never been stronger." So I said, what do you think? We're tracking your responses tonight. Molly Jennings said, quote, "She has taken every opportunity to avoid leading us safely through this pandemic, and our state is suffering." Dwayne Nofke said simply, no, this is not the best condition our state has ever been in. Tom Carmen from Urbana, Iowa says, "Our state is doing very well. We're all very lucky to be able to have our state open and to be able to live our lives the best we can with the situation we are in. Thank you, Kim, for doing your best and evolving with the pandemic that nobody knows what the next day will bring." So again, some differing reaction there, some still showing some frustration, others in full support of Governor Reynolds. And particularly regarding education, I asked you what you thought about the governor asking the legislature to put forth a bill that provides every family with an option to send their child to school in person if that is their wish. Kayla Johnson wrote, "By God's grace, my son has been in person all year, but not in public school." So Kayla expressing there that she's very thankful that her son has been able to attend school in person. And we know that there are families for whom childcare is not an option financially, and that was one of the things that Governor Reynolds said tonight. She wanted to make sure she supports those families. She also supports the option of open enrollment for families, so wants to make sure that no matter where they live, they have the ability to send their child to a district that they feel can suit them and best educate them. Stephanie?
Eva, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And for you at home, we want to remind you that you can download our app. This is the QR code that you can scan to do that, and you will have more coverage, including the Democratic response there and on our website, weareiowa.com. We'll have more on Local 5 News at 10.